Hello friends and welcome. If you weren't aware, Valve has suggested that the next patch 7.29 will be coming out on April 9th. Now, due to Valve time, who knows, it may get pushed back a little bit, but it does mean that our time on this current patch is limited and coming to an end. So I wanted you guys to know that there are a couple heroes you may want to consider playing before the patch hits, because most supports, they're still supports after a patch. Their numbers get changed around, things like that, but they're still supports. This time, though, we have a couple heroes who were not supports before, and depending how Ice Frog feels, they may not be supports again for quite a while. So this is your chance to play these guys. I'm not even telling you that you're going to win MMR. I'm not telling you they're easy, but they're pretty fun, and I don't know if you'll get to do this again for a while. So let me give you a rundown on them. You may have already seen them, but here we go. First up is Gyrocopter. You've probably seen this one. He's kind of popular, where you start with either Homing Missile or Rocket Barrage. You're going to max one of those two first. In fact, you're going to max both of them before taking Flat Cannon. I'll pop up a generic starting item build recommendation, some skill build, stuff like that here, just to give you an idea, but you can feel free to mix it around a little bit. The idea is that you're a great laner. You're going to start probably by just throwing out Homing Missile on the enemy from the trees. When the missile starts going, you're going to go run at them and attack. If they hit you, they're going to get hit by the missile, take a bunch of damage, and then you hit them while they're stunned. If they try to hit the missile, then odds are they're not going to get the missile in time, and you're going to get the same effect. Or they will get the missile in time, but you will be attacking them for free in that time. Later, you'll get Rocket Barrage, and almost no one can trade 1v1 with Gyrocopter when he has Rocket Barrage going. So if you ever catch the enemy support trying to stop your pulls, you just run up right next to them and Rocket Barrage, bully them out, and then you can do the next pull uncontested. So you have a very strong laning presence. You're going to buy a lot of early game items. Now, what you buy can change. You can do typical support stuff like Glimmer Force. You could go for like a Veil, a Urn, maybe a full Spirit Vessel, depending. But you have a lot of flexibility because you have really good starting stats. You don't really need to buy boots right away. You can buy a lot of small items that make you stronger, still win the lane even without boots, and then buy boots eventually. You know, you still need them. But that's one of his strengths, and in fact, it's the strength of many of these supports we're going to mention here. They're all really fast, so they don't need boots, and that's a lot of money you can save to buy a wand, to buy raindrops, to buy a Ring of Basilius, and then you're just stronger than other people in the game. You can buy 2 fluffy hats. People have been doing that too. Just be really tanky with strong spells. Now, once you hopefully win your lane, you're going to start rotating, and Gyrocopter has some really strong rotations with his Homing Missile. If anyone else has some kind of stun, or if he launches it from the trees, it is a great way to start a fight. He's going to add a lot of damage with Rocket Barrage and his ultimate, because he doesn't need to max Flat Cannon. Core Gyrocopter needed Flat Cannon to farm and to fight, and then he needs to spend time farming, so he didn't really get to use his spells for fighting. But now you're support Gyrocopter, and you're just going to go around maxing your spells, which are really strong, and throwing them out, trying to win fights. Your items, we kind of mentioned, will fit this theme. You're going for this early fighting tempo, and when you play a fight, you're going to be running in and out. You're going to try to throw out lots of homing missiles, try to get close to people to use Rocket Barrage, but we're not too worried about auto attacks at this point. Your auto attacks are great in the lane, but you aren't really buying damage items. So as support Gyrocopter, you're more about constantly throwing out spells, maybe using those items you bought, and you don't worry too much about your Flat Cannon hits. But of course, you can if you have the opportunity. Don't just like sit there not attacking, but don't feel like you need to be right in the front of the fight like a usual Gyrocopter. You're going to be weaving in and out because you're not going to be doing as much damage or be as tanky as a typical core Gyrocopter. Next up, I want to talk about Death Prophet. She is another very fast hero who can skip boots to buy early fighting items. Her laning stage is pretty strong, especially with Spirit Siphon. It means she can win trades with a lot of typical position 4s who usually beat up position 5s, but not anymore. Not with Spirit Siphon, not with my crazy move speed and stats on this Death Prophet. So she has a strong laning presence. After that, she is really scary with her ultimate. Because her ultimate can still kill people and can take towers, whether she's a mid or a 5 support, people still have to put a lot of priority on her. But then, they focus you, they use a lot of spells on you, and you're just a position 5. So then your actual cores can then kill the enemy team who have used all their spells and items killing you. And if they don't kill you, well, then you have your ultimate going, which is just as strong as a core Death Prophet. So now you're doing a ton in team fights. So after you win your laning stage, you're looking to force these rotations, possibly win team fights, but even if you just take towers, or even if you don't take a tower but force the whole enemy team over there, remember, you're just a position 5. Very few position 5s can force teams to rotate like this, so you're doing a ton for your team, making a lot of space for your cores to farm. Hopefully they're going to carry us later, but I don't know, we'll see. Later in the game, you're still going to be doing what core Death Prophet sort of does, but you don't want to go in as deep into the fight. Because you're not as farmed, you're not going to be nearly as strong. So if they try to kill you, they probably will kill you. So don't go in crazy deep, but kind of close enough for death, or for your ultimate to still be going around. Exorcism. The reason this works is that you don't have to max Crypt Swarm like core Death Prophet usually has to. That's her farming mechanic. But we're a support, we're not going to farm, so we max Spirit Siphon. That's why you become such a strong laner. It's why you're able to rotate around. You then max your silence, because it's actually a really long silence, and it's AoE. And because you're a support, you can do that. And so you just go around with your spells, and that's kind of the theme of these heroes. You don't need to max your farming abilities, so you get to go with your other abilities and just cause havoc in the first, let's say 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. Now after that, you're still going to be a hero, but you are going to drop off compared to usual supports. But it's fine, because the idea is that you're just winning enough from the beginning 20 minutes, and that your cores are strong enough, you're strong enough, that it doesn't matter that you don't do the typical support things. Finally, we have Luna. Luna's a little different than the other two, I feel like. Death Prophet and Gyrocopter, they are strong laners that then go to rotate and cause a lot of havoc. And they have their own differences still, but I feel like they're very strong laners, and that's one of the things that define them. Luna is a little bit weaker of a laner. I think she's still on the stronger, she's like mediocre to strong side, but the way she plays it is different. Gyrocopter and Death Prophet can just run at people with Spirit Siphon and Rocket Barrage, Homing Missile, things like that. They just run at you and win trades. Luna has to take it a little slower. She's like Lich, where her Lucent Beam is a very low cooldown. So she's looking for this auto attack, Lucent Beam, which has a mini stun, followed by a second auto attack, and maybe continue trade from there, maybe back off. And she's looking to do that a lot because Lucent Beam is only 6 seconds. Lucent Beam is weaker than most other spells. So if you only take a trade like once every, let's say 20 seconds, then you're probably going to lose those because the enemy has their spells. But most spells are not 6-second cooldowns. So you're looking to take a trade, and then when the enemy 4 or 3, whoever, they feel weak because they don't have their spell, you get your spell again, and you're looking to go and make another trade. And that's kind of how Luna wins. So she doesn't just run at you. She's looking at a lot of these small, repeated little skirmishes. Kind of like poking, let's say. Now, with her ultimate, it is, again, this very powerful ultimate, like Death Prophet, that can get solo kills if the positioning is right, because it can hit creeps. But that's still scary. It is scary for a support to be able to solo kill cores. So you're able to go rotate, maybe find these key pickoffs, maybe win team fights if you pressure, say, the mid lane. They try to come fight you, but then this support Luna kills them with her ultimate, and now you get the mid tower. Core Luna, she can kind of do that too, but she also really wanted to max Glaives because she needed to farm, because she's a core Luna. So she didn't want to be involved in so many fights, and she didn't have the spells to be in the same fights. Support Luna maxes Lucent Beam, maxes her aura, and that makes her really good at playing with people super quickly. Again, she doesn't need boots, so she can buy lots of small fighting items if she chooses to. Because unlike Gyrocopter and Death Prophet, who I would say as supports have a more upfront impact and then kind of drop off, Luna, with her Aghanim's build, is still very strong in the late game. So, Luna can go for those small fighting items, but many have been rushing the Aghanims. And once you get Aghanims, you just have this crazy strong team fight that you just, every time you have it, you go for an objective, you go for a big team fight, and you're probably going to win as long as you're not too far behind. And then, of course, you got to be careful that the enemy has BKBs and stuff like that. But if they don't, or if you can play around it, you're gonna win team fights, because a support usually does not have this powerful of a spell. if she gets a refresher, that is the strength in the late game. If you look at her talents, the mini stun, the extra damage, it gets crazy what she can output. Now, in team fights, you're going to stay near the edge of the fight. You don't want to run in like Core Luna, because Core Luna had a lot of farm. She had a BKB. She can do all this damage to lifesteal. You're not that. You are taking talents that reduce your Lucent Beam and increase the cast range. So you're going to stick around the edge of fights, constantly poking out with this Q. It's 0.8 seconds of mini stun, which is not a ton, but it's also really irritating for a lot of people. You can constantly cancel channels. You can disrupt a core who doesn't want to get kited, but now they're falling like a second behind when they're chasing someone, things like that. You are providing your aura by surviving and by being in the fight, not dying by running in. So that's why you have to stay at the edge, constantly poke, wait for your chance to see a good ultimate, because you can't just ult right away. Many people will pop their BKBs or their creeps around, things like that. You have to find the right opportunity, and that's usually when BKBs end, depending on where you are. In the late game, that's when you want to ult if you can help it, unless your team has some like AoE stun, things like that. But you want to help your team kite out the BKBs, keeping your distance, poking, the BKBs end, and then you're ready to run in with your ultimate and clean up that fight. It changes a little bit when you get the Ags and the refresher. Like, maybe you can use it first, because the mini stun, you can kind of chain stun people a little bit, but that can still be a little risky. I still think it's good to wait at the edge of fights, being annoying, and then holding your ultimate until you're confident that you will get the full impact out of it. I should mention that Death Prophet and Luna I've seen in both position 4 and position 5, but Luna seems to be mostly position 4, Death Prophet mostly position 5, and Gyro, I've only really seen him in the 5 role, but what the heck, you know, if you really want to give him a shot in the position 4, because this is the time to do it. There are a couple other cores being played as supports that you might find interesting, like Mars and Tidehunter, but I'm not so worried about them getting removed as supports in the next patch. They're being picked right now because they're melee, they're tanky, they do something in the lane, they initiate later, and I think that'll carry over. Even if they get changed in the next patch, I could see a world in the future where they come back as supports. OD, if you really liked him, probably now's the time to play him as well, but he's already been nerfed, he's already fallen off a lot as a support. Again, if you liked it, now's probably the time, but you know, I don't really recommend him. The others, I'm not promising MMR, but they are legit right now. But he's kind of already down there. Those are, I think, the main 6 that we might see changes to. They could, maybe they'll still be supports, but maybe not. So give him a shot. I know I will be. Thanks for watching, guys. You've got 1 week. Go out and try it.